Really, I showed him the door. She comes out of the room and she had rubbed her neck red, rubbed it red, and said I had been strangling her. Now that's a felony.
Yeah,
you know, like you go to jail for that.
She probably knew that.
Yeah, and she probably absolutely.
Hello, I'm Angela Williams.
And I'm Katie Sudano.
And I'm a survivor of child sexual abuse.
And I'm a survivor of child sexual abuse.
Welcome to Voice Up for the Voiceless. We're so happy that you've tuned in today. Our podcast focuses on a really dark and difficult subject of child sexual abuse. But today's show, we're going to talk about narcissism and the narcissists that are in our lives, the narcissists that perhaps have abused us. I feel 1,000% that all pedophiles, all abusers of child sexual abuse are narcissists, because obviously they don't care nor think about the victim and what they're doing to their lives and how they're taking innocent. So we've got some great guests for you today, and we just ask that you like, share this podcast so we can continue to break the silence around child sexual abuse. And I want to just welcome my co-host, beautiful Katie Sudano, today.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to be here, and especially today because we have special guests, John and Melissa Rymer. They have a fabulous, is it a foundation, a nonprofit?
It's actually a company that we started just to help.
So for-profit company.
Yeah.
For-profit. We will plan on nonprofit in the future, but
once
right
we
now
get a little older. Yeah.
So Victims to Warrior. I love that name. It resonated with me. It was really funny how we met too, because I was at the nail salon across the whole entire salon.
Yep.
And John, you're learning Spanish.
Right.
I think you have been to Mexico a few times, and
35 times.
Oh wow!
You should be fluent by now.
I should be.
No, but you were doing really well, and you were talking to one of the nail techs, and I don't think she quite understood you. And of course, me. My ears are all over the place. I have 5 kids, so, I hear everything. And I'm like, he's saying, da-da-da.
Well, it was funny because I didn't know the word for lake, and you said lago, and I'm like, I said, you speak Spanish. So it kind of opened up the conversation that way.
Yeah, so it was great. And I'm so glad that, sometimes over listening is a good thing, because then we resonated with each other.
Well,
and things
God
happen for a reason.
Opens doors.
Absolutely.
Yeah, puts people together for a reason.
Yes, he does.
So let's just dive right in. Can you tell us how you guys met, maybe a little bit about your history, your background, and how you came to this work?
Yes, we're both from the financial industry. In fact, I've spent 40 years in it, John the same. And I was offered an early retirement at the end of 2021. And I convinced John to quit his job too. He's like, oh my God, what are we doing, babe? Yeah. And so we went to Mexico. We stayed there a couple months, soul searching. We didn't know we couldn't really retire, but we didn't know what we wanted to do. And because we're both survivors of horrific abuse, we decided to give back to the community and tell people that they're not alone, that they can get through this and recover. And we basically started writing down the steps that we took individually. We didn't even know each other or knew that we both suffered through this until, we were married. And so when we started thinking about the steps we took to actually get through it and not just survive, but thrive, we're like, let's share this with people, because when you're in it, you don't know how to get out of it. You're in such a dark, dark place. And it's very difficult for victims to move past it and trust again and, start living their lives. So that's the reason we came up with Victim to Warrior.
Well, let's dive into that it.
Okay,
tell us your story.
Well, my story, I met my abuser in church, actually. I was in a recovery group, and I guess he was searching for his next victim.
A divorce recovery group, and he was still married.
Yeah.
Wow.
So he was searching for his next target.
Mm-hmm.
So wait, he was there married, just pretending or claiming to be, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
And he started mirroring what Melissa was looking for. That's what narcissists can do.
Well, and I was telling my story. We broke up in small groups, and he wasn't in our group at the beginning. And so we were only 12 people of a group of 300. We met every Wednesday, had dinner, and then broke into our small groups to tell our stories. So 2 weeks into the program, he now shows up in our group and said he was put in the wrong group. But I think what happened is he was trolling the groups to find out who his next victim could be. And I was in a bad place. I was devastated. I had just sold a company, so he knew I had money. He knew I had a good job. I was successful. And that I had been cheated on, and just horrible things that had happened in that previous marriage. So all of a sudden his story was very similar to mine. Yep. And he was cheated on, wife left him, she was a gold digger, all of which were lies. Of course, I had no idea at the time because he was saying things that resonated
I'm still wrapping
with me.
my head around he was married and in this group.
And had a sign of, that he had been divorced for a year.
Oh, wow.
You couldn't even get in it. Now, they didn't ask for your divorce decree, but they would think you wouldn't lie about something like that.
Not in church.
No.
Not in a church support group.
Oh, geez. So we were together 12 weeks through this program, and then he told our group, we became really good friends because it was 6 guys and 6 girls. So we did a lot of things together. Well, he told our group that he was going on a missions trip and that he would be gone for 3 months. And we're like, oh my gosh, that is
so wonderful.
Yeah. Well, years later, I find out he was not on a missions trip. He actually took money out of the marital account of his wife that he was divorcing, or she was divorcing him, and went to Monaco to the Formula One race and acted like he was just rich and famous for those 3 months. He was not on a missions trip. So these people can lie like nobody's business. Well, he comes back, he has all these stories about this missions trip, all lies. And we just kind of connected, So he pursued me, dating me for a year. And then, oh my God.
And I'm assuming charming as all get out.
Oh, yes. In fact, our first date was on a yacht. He had a lake house, and it was on a yacht at his lake house, and he sent me on a scavenger hunt to different stores to pick up like sunglasses, a windbreaker, and I was just, all these stores had the little gifts for me. And then I ended up at the lake house, and out in the back of it was this yacht. Well, we went on our first date on this yacht. I find out years later, he actually stole it from a woman who died down the street from him. He was working on her boat and she died. And so he took it. And, she was a widow. And so her children lived out of state. So they had to actually sue him for this yacht that he ended up selling to someone in another state. So the scams were unbelievable. But those type of things, were what he was good at. So very, very charming, always looking to impress, and he always said, he had a lot of money. Well, his house was going into foreclosure. I did not know that. So he proposed to me. We went to Aruba. Of course, I paid for it because he said, he had a business that he wanted to keep separate. And so I paid for the whole trip. And he proposed to me on this little island. Chartered a boat, buried this diamond in a bottle in the sand. And
he's good.
Wait.
Yes.
I have to know because I'm blingy. So was it a real diamond? Was it a stolen diamond? Do we know the diamond story? Not that it matters.
We do
I'm
know
just
the diamond
kidding.
story. The diamond story is bad. The diamond story is really
well, we don't have to
bad.
get into it. I'm just,
it's bad.
I'm thinking of everything he's doing. Is this guy like?
No, the diamond was totally fake. But he faked the appraisal. He put it on our insurance. I mean, it was the
So he's like,
He went to a lot of
Scam
extremes.
or-
So what
He
did
did.
he do to you emotionally? Talk a little bit about the abuse part that you suffered.
Well, he once we got engaged, and he moved in with me because he said he sold his house. His house actually went into foreclosure. The whole wedding, the honeymoon was just over the top. 6 months after we got married, things started changing. Then he was starting to criticize, pick on things, asked me to invest in his company, which I did. $100,000 that ended up being a scam. And so the more I started resisting, the more pushy he got and the more verbally abusive he got. And so he was messing with my self-esteem, my confidence. And I was I worked for a corporation. I was in a big position. But he started alienating me from my friends. He was complaining about this friend. He started making up lies about them. And so I started pulling away from them, and they started pulling away from me. And so then he started on my son, and he really did some horrific things to my son.
How old was your son at the time?
When we met, my son was 13. Oh. So he was looking at him, as a father figure, and he acted that way until we got married. Then all of a sudden, my son, who I was very close to because I was a single mom, he tried to drive a wedge between my son and I. So he became so abusive to my son behind my back. And so my son saw how happy he made me, supposedly. And so he started actually pulling away, and I didn't understand why. But he thought, I don't want to ruin this relationship if he loves my mom so much. So he was enduring all this abuse, physical, mental, everything from him. He was very twisted sexually, but he ended up transferring to another college out of state, and I had no idea why. I'm like, why are you leaving? He goes, Mom, I just think it would be better if I leave. So once my son was out of the picture, then it was just me, because he had alienated me from my family, my friends. Now my son was gone, and there was no one to protect me.
And that's a pattern.
Yes.
A pattern.
It is
So a question, because, we've all been in situations where we feel these red flags. And a lot of people will ask me, or, and I'm sure they've asked you too, Angela, like, didn't you know, didn't you realize, there's red flags? But I think we, as women, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I'm generalizing here, well, because I'm a woman, but I think we feel things and we brush them aside because we have to be nice, or we have to be, the peacekeepers, or, do you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
So I'm sure you had them, but did you recognize them? And if so, when, at what point, was it too late, or did you just ignore them?
Well, I started recognizing them. Things were not making sense, but because things seemed to be so perfect with him, I made excuses. Well, that must be because of this. But when looking back, when I started seeing things, the patterns, things that didn't make sense that a normal person would not do. A normal person wouldn't do certain things. And when I would ask him, he always had an excuse. It would just go off the top of his head. Just lies and lies and lies. And so it wasn't until I sold my house, which I owned. He talked me into buying this luxury, huge house. I did. I fell for it, and I bought it so we can entertain friends. And, of course, none of that happened. It was just this massive house that now I'm in debt. It's all in my name. Nothing's in his name. And then he started opening credit cards behind my back. I didn't realize it at the time. And he would make the minimum payments, but he was buying these extravagant things for me on my own credit cards. And it was like these gifts and stuff. And I'm like, you really don't have to do that. And so he literally paid the minimum payments until, of course, things got bad. But the violence started when he started drinking again. He was a recovering alcoholic, he said, but there were signs that he was drinking again. Of course, he blamed my son. I was finding beer bottles and whiskey in the bushes and things like that. And he told me it was my son. Well, my son was, 18, 19 years old. So I'm thinking, well, maybe it is him doing that. And so now he's out of state. I'm still noticing things. And so I remember coming home one day from work. He's not working. He always lied about his companies. He was always an entrepreneur for this business or that business. They all would fail. And I came home, and we had a big screen, like a movie theater, and I walked in, and he was watching cross-dressing porn with children in it. And he didn't realize that I was there. And so I'm just like, what are you doing? What are you watching? And so, he's making excuses for it. So when I said, I go, you know what, I can't deal with this. And that's when he first grabbed me and literally held me down and said, you're not going anywhere. This is your life now. You married me and this is it. Mm-hmm. And I said, I can get a divorce. And he said, well, then move out. And I said, this is my house. He said, too bad. I don't want a divorce. You get out. And he said, and you're going to keep me in this lifestyle that I've become accustomed to. And you're going to pay me alimony if you want to leave. Otherwise, this is your life. And that's when the war began. That is when it began, because I wanted out. I wanted out. And
his cover was blown, and
yes.
Well, that's
you're
the thing
fed
about
up
the red
and-
flags, though. That they always say narcissists are the master manipulators. They are. You don't really see the red flags until it's too late.
until you're so
Yeah.
deep.
Until,
That's what I was
until you're
wondering.
actually married
Yeah.
or have children or are in a partnership, a business partnership or whatever. You don't know what you're getting into
Right.
until it's too late. And when you do see the red flags before it's too late, there's always an excuse.
Right.
There's always a reason why they're acting that way.
And some, I'm sure, major gaslighting too.
Right,
Oh,
exactly,
gosh.
exactly.
Yes.
And so
and smearing your name behind your back. So friends and family who you thought you could depend on aren't returning your phone calls,
that's
and
a
you don't
huge
have
part
any
of it
idea
is
why.
of the abuse is the isolation.
Yeah.
You don't know who your
They
friends
are
and
the
family
only one
are. There's
there.
no one to support you, so you don't have anyone to reach out to. And that's a huge part of our recovery program is support and being a part of a support group, because it's a must when you're trying to recover from this, because you have been so isolated.
Now I'm assuming you vet them.
Oh,
Maybe you should ask for their divorce papers.
yeah. Oh my goodness. Yes.
We've kind of dug into your story, but I want to hear your story, because it sounds like God's kind of brought y'all together on this mission.
It
And
really-
you don't think about women being
Right.
narcissistic and abusive.
absolutely.
So,
Right.
John, can you open up and share a little bit?
Absolutely. The thing is about female narcissists, we have not really known that they've even existed until recently. I always say we always have to thank Johnny Depp for really bringing female narcissists to the forefront, because when this happened to me in the early 2000s, we had no idea what this was, what was going on. And so it was just, I was finding these things out just as they went and didn't have anyone to talk to or share it with, because no one really knew what was going on with my life. And it was not as destructive as Melissa, as far as the physical abuse that she went through. I didn't endure that, but the financial and emotional abuse that I went through was life-changing for sure.
What were some of the give us an example, because we know we're very familiar with the male narcissist, but what were kind of the things that you would find out or that were happening?
Well, the financial abuse was probably the worst. Like male narcissists, female narcissists are looking for targets too. They look for victims, and a lot of it has to do with financial. They're looking for a financial target to try to take advantage of in situations, or someone that's connected or has businesses or friends in areas that person wants to be involved with. So they're looking for targets too. So I didn't realize that I was a target. I thought, I'm just a catch for her. I thought at the time, not knowing that she was actually looking at me as a target as we went through. And the funny thing is, I did see the red flags. We dated for a long time, years, because I just didn't feel comfortable going to that next step. Although she kept pushing for that next step, because she
Ultimatums.
knew. Absolutely. And because she knew once she had that, it was all.
Now, was that your first marriage?
It was not.
Okay.
It was that's funny. Melissa and I both been married 3 times, third time's the charge, right? The first time was very, very young, different part of my life when I was pursuing different careers. But the second time happened, and I actually met my female narcissist at church also. Funny, because you have to be careful. You just never know where you're going to find or be found. So I've met mine in church. We dated for a long, long time, and I did get a lot of ultimatums, and there were red flags. I ignored them because of the other things that she brought to me. That were things that she knew I needed in my life to feel more full. And so we finally did get married, and I knew within a couple of weeks, we've made a mistake. We should not have done this. This is not what because then the mask fell off. Her mask fell off, and she did the things that she wanted to do all along, but didn't because it would have driven me away.
Yeah, she was just waiting. Hook, line, and sinker.
Just waiting, hook, line, and sinker. Absolutely. And so when I said, we weren't married very long, 6 months, literally. But I said, we've made a mistake. I think we just needed to get a divorce. And that's when the war started. That's when the attacks started, the smear campaigns against me, telling all my friends and family that I was physically abusing her, which was a lie. But how does a man defend himself to that? He doesn't even know what's going on. And then the financial abuse started where, trying to extort money from me. I will divorce you, but you have to pay me this much money to go. And
tell them about the almost getting you arrested.
Oh gosh, we came home from a restaurant one time, and she had been drinking a lot and was just being really obnoxious and very kind of almost violent to a way. So I just locked myself in the master bedroom. I just didn't want any part of it. All of a sudden, her foot comes through the door, kicking this hard panel door, not a hollow door, but a nice mahogany door, came through the door. And so I pick up the phone. This is the time of landlines, and picked up the phone, and I'm just like, I'm going to let the police deal with this. And I called 911, and I said, no, that's ridiculous, and I hung up. Well, if you've ever dialed 911, they're coming anyway. Yep. So they called right back, and I said, listen, there's no reason to. And they said, well, we're having to send someone out anyway. And I'm like, I live in a really nice neighborhood. I don't want the police showing up at my house at 10 o'clock at night. This is, my neighbors and everything. But I called my brother, who lived right down the street, and I said, you got to come over. The police are on the way. I need your help here. He knew what I was dealing with. Fortunately, he was there, because when the police showed up, I was very calm, very cool about everything. And I said, I showed him the door. She comes out of the room, and she had rubbed her neck red, rubbed it red, and said I had been strangling her. Now, that's a felony.
Yeah.
It's like attempted murder. You go to jail for that.
She probably knew that.
Yeah, she probably, absolutely. So thank God my brother was there, because he went ballistic, knowing that I would never touch a woman, ever. And so he went nuts about it. And they got into this big argument. Of course, I stayed calm the whole time, and I just explained the situation to the law enforcement officer. Fortunately, he said, okay, I just need to separate you two, and that's going to be it. You have to go somewhere, John. I'm like, well, this is my house. I own the house just like Melissa owned her house. But I went somewhere else. Unfortunately, my parents lived in the neighborhood also, and they were out of the country, so I just went and stayed at their house over that night. So you would think that would have been the end of the story for me, but it wasn't. She came to my parents' house the next day crying, begging for my forgiveness and all that, and I forgave her. I'm thinking she blamed it on the medication she was on, mixing it with alcohol. It was never going to happen again. And I forgave her, even though she tried to have me arrested. I mean, it's crazy what victims do at that time. And as a man, it's really hard to say, I was a victim and I was abused, and I just didn't know it at the time. And so I forgave her over and over and over again. But again, when it comes down to it, fortunately, we went through a divorce. I had to pay a lot of money just to get rid of her, with no kids, no abuse, no nothing, just extortion, like I said. So it was a difficult time for me to recover from.
Oh, I'm so sorry you went through that. But let's camp out here for our listeners, because so often as survivors of child sexual abuse, we are very vulnerable. And we have almost a scarlet letter on our head that says, abuse me again.
Right.
So narcissists are drawn to survivors. So for our audience, can you just list some characteristics of a narcissist so we can just be real clear? I mean, I think we have outlined some of them, but can we share some of those characteristics?
Yes. A lot of times they're good listeners at the beginning, because they're learning about you and what's important to you. And then all of a sudden, when it's their turn to share, they're sharing things. They're all lies, but they're sharing things about having the same interest as you do. So it starts out with love bombing. They've never met anyone like you. You're their soulmate. They've never felt this connection with anyone else. What woman who's been through horrible things doesn't want to hear that from someone?
And they hear that within a very short period of time, too.
It
That's
happens
the bizarre
very,
thing.
very
First,
fast.
second, third date, it's all of a sudden like, I can't live my life without you type
I want to spend all this time with you. You are, God sent you to me. I mean, things
I've never
like that.
heard that term, love bombing.
Oh, yes.
I'm going to remember that.
Love love bombing. That's it. It's like
so number one, love bombing. All right.
Number one, love bombing. And then when we say mirroring, they become what you're basically looking for. When we look in the mirror and see ourselves, we know what we like. You know what we like to do. They start becoming exactly like that. Like if you like the beach, they love the beach.
I love the beach.
If you
or
like
love
the
yoga
mountains,
or whatever.
whatever you like.
They
all of a
find
sudden-
everything in
Yeah.
common.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And what we
Okay.
tell our clients now is when someone says that they love the beach or they love yoga, there's going to be some proof of that. Their social media is going to show photos of things. But when you are smothered with this type of attention, you don't think about checking them out because you're so, wowed by what they're saying to you. But that's a way for victims to know if it's true or not. Go to their social
do some
media.
due diligence.
Yes,
Yeah.
actually,
Yeah.
for your audience, what we really love to do on our social media channels is we do reenactments.
I love that.
Yeah,
skits of what actually
skits
happened
of
to
what
us.
looks like, what love bombing actually looks like, what mirroring actually.
We need
future
to. Can we
fake-
do a skit today? Can
Yeah.
we do a little something today?
We should.
We should.
do
Well, I
it.
wish you would have
Why
told
not?
us you
Yeah.
wanted to do that, but we would love
John's
to do
always
something
the
like
bad guy. He's always the
Unfortunately, I'm usually
narcissist
the
for the
narcissist.
most part.
But
Yeah.
for your audience that is concerned that maybe they're
Something's
involved and something is going on, they can go to our channels and watch our reenactments and see, oh my gosh, that's going on in my life. We also have a questionnaire that they can take. It's just a free download.
Am I with a narcissist?
It's a narcissist
Okay.
or narcissistic traits questionnaire.
Wonderful.
And you just
Yeah.
take the test and you go through it and you add it up at the end and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm with a narcissist.
Because
I
narcissists
didn't
don't
know.
change.
Yeah.
They are basically like a sociopath.
So love bombing, mirroring. What's something else?
Gaslighting, which is basically making you think you're losing your sanity. You'll bring something up, like I would have recordings and videos, and somehow he would flip it around. Well, that's because you did this before that. And I'm like, no, that's not what happened. This is what happened. He would even deny what was right in front. And then I started thinking, well, maybe I did egg that on. Maybe I did cause him to react that way.
So
it makes
you're
you doubt your
feeling
own sanity.
blame. You're
Yeah.
Oh,
like
yes.
it's your fault.
Yeah.
Right.
They
right.
will definitely reverse it. And they're so convincing that you sit there and you doubt yourself. And they'll bring up things from the past that might have caused this behavior that they're doing now. And then all of a sudden you're like, then you're on the defensive. You're like, but that happened 2 years ago. Why are you bringing it up now? And then he's like, oh, well, you know what? We just pick on me, but when I bring stuff up about you, you don't want to talk about it. I'm like, 3 years ago.
So
love bombing,
deflection.
mirroring,
Yeah.
gaslighting.
Gaslighting.
What's something else we can look for?
Well, hoovering.
Hoovering.
is a big thing too.
Oh
When-
wait, what's
What's
hoovering?
hoovering?
Oh, gosh.
hoovering.
It's really
Wait, not hovering.
It's
Hoovering.
hoovering.
It's
It's
like
like
a
a vacuum
vacuum.
cleaner.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
Teach us
that's
about
a
that.
good
Yeah,
one.
this is when you have enough nerve to leave, and we've all been
Right.
through this. Victims go back on average 7 times to their abuser. It's really, really sad, and it's because of the love bombing and the hoovering. Because when you've had enough, you are so far gone that you can barely even get out. You don't even know what you're thinking, but you're out. Well, that is the worst time for you as a victim because you're very vulnerable. You're scared. You lost all your friends and family. You're isolated. You have no one to turn to. And guess what? The victim,
Let me guess. They suck you back
Yep.
in.
Yes.
That's
They
the
hoover you
hoovering.
back,
Get it?
right?
They hoover, they suck you back in.
They
I
tell
get it.
you
I'm so
everything
sorry.
that you want to hear.
Yeah.
All the
that
apologies.
made you leave.
Yeah.
All of a sudden,
They're
they're
gonna
going to do all of
change,
it.
they're gonna-
They're going to
yep,
go to
yep.
counseling.
Okay.
Well,
They're
I'm
never
glad
gonna
you
do
didn't
that
call
again.
it Dysoning because I love my
That's good.
Hoovering. Yeah.
All right, so we've got love bombing, we've got mirroring, we've got gaslighting, we've got
Hoovering.
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 What's next?
My God, I wish we had our list for this.
Yeah,
because-
we have something called the narc dick.
Yeah,
Oh.
it's
The
actually the
Narcissistic
Narcissistic
Dictionary.
Dictionary. We
Dictionary.
refer to it as
Whoa.
narc
It's
dick.
DIC.
Okay,
Gotcha.
DIC. Gotcha.
So, but it's also something that someone can download from our social media channels. It's just a narcissistic dictionary that really, because you're in a relationship where you have to have a dictionary to help you understand what you're dealing with. It's incredible.
Well, narcissist is the basis for a lot of psychological disorders.
It's incredible that you have to know these terms.
Flying monkeys.
Flying monkeys
is another one.
You know.
Okay, what's a flying monkey?
I'm thinking as in the Wizard of Oz. You know, the Wicked Witch sent out her little minions.
Yeah.
That is what a narcissist does. They have flying monkeys, which what we call them are people that are just think they are everything, because a narcissist doesn't act that the way they treat you in private. They don't act that way in public. So they're this perfect person, and so when you complain about them, people think you're the problem. They're like, he's so awesome, he's so nice, are you kidding me? And so all of these people around the relationship, you know, fake friends, whatever, when you're going through trouble, you're not going to talk to your abuser because they're the ones that are causing you so much heartache. So you go to people you think you can trust, and you start talking to them. If they're a flying monkey, they're going to go right back to your abuser and tell them, well, I just saw your wife and she said this at lunch, you know, what's going on? Well, mine started a rumor about me that it was so disgusting and horrific. He told everyone in our church group that I was having an incestual relationship with my teenage son. And that's what was causing our marital problems.
How horrific.
I had to file a defamation of character lawsuit against him after the fact for that. But I had no idea that is what he said to people.
But think about how that alienated her from all her
because they knew
especially
it's
unbelievable.
I'm surprised someone didn't call DFACS or have a well check or
I had one
goodness.
person, a guy, actually call me and say, your ex is saying these things. I just thought I'd let you know. I was devastated. I could not believe that he would actually sink to those levels.
Tell us a little bit about what if our listeners go to your website or go to follow you on social media. Tell us what that handle is, by the way.
Love to. They can go on to TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, any of those places, and just enter in YouTube and enter Victim to Warrior.
Victim to Warrior.
Yeah, and they'll find our channels, and it's just Melissa and John Rymer, and they can see our reenactments. And we've had thousands and thousands of comments that people tell us, oh my gosh, I didn't realize until I saw it.
Right.
I thought I was the only one that was doing it. Now I know, and I feel so much better because now I see it, and now I understand it.
And here's the thing, too. I just want to preface. And I'll put the link under there, and I hope we can get a little reenactment.
Well, I'm thinking about it right now.
Stay till the end of the video, and hopefully we'll get a little snippet. You don't have to go too long. But my thing is, it's just so prevalent that in child sexual abuse and sex trafficking, that these people are like narcissists. I mean, everything you're telling us, I'm thinking of my own story, and I'm like, yeah, he was like that. He was like that. So, I just see him as a predator. Right. I see him as a child abuse pedophile. But now I have to add narcissist in there. Right. And the reality is, if I really look back, I'm like, yeah, everyone loved him. He said he did these things to me, and yet they're still inviting him for dinner. And I'm sitting there, a 14-year-old girl, looking back at it going, confused. Why are they doting on him? I'm sitting here suffering, embarrassed, full of shame and guilt and blame, and they're toasting.
My stepfather would just beat me brutally and then just be so sweet and so nice. And,
it's the most unbelievable.
I caused it. I caused the beating.
Of course.
I did something.
And you
try
and try to be better.
It's like a minefield.
Yes.
You walk through a minefield.
You're walking on eggshells.
All the time.
In your own home, or you
don't know when that bomb's going to go off.
Right. So tell us a little bit about your coaching and what they can expect if they come to your some of your classes.
Well, what we try to do is we let victims know, one, it's not your fault. You did not cause this. And there is a way out. It takes work. It takes time to heal your brain, because trauma bonding, which is part of why people don't leave abusers is because the only thing their brain knows is the abuse. It doesn't know how to escape that. So part of our coaching helps people create different paths off what we call the hamster wheel of abuse, to find dopamine elsewhere and not from that little glimpse of happiness your abuser might give you. You're just praying for it, and then the whole cycle starts all over again. So that 10-step recovery program that we have, we just take the victims through leaving all the way to basically getting their freedom back, getting their life back, getting control of things back, which they relinquished to the abuser little by little until they had nothing. And that's what an abuser wants, because you can't leave if you don't have money and you don't have control of anything.
Well, we're so grateful for your work, and we'll have to have you guys back. There's a lot to unpack here.
Wait, we have to have a skit. Can we do a skit?
Let's do a skit.
All right.
Okay.
Let's do, what about the sickness? Or you want to do the marriage counseling? Because both of those are really...
Okay. I was thinking about doing, okay, whatever you want to do. We had one where Melissa was sick and called.
Okay, don't tell them.
Okay, we have just a
we're
few
gonna-
minutes
okay.
left.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Okay, cool.
Go ahead.
Okay.
You're on.
All right. So I've texted him. I am 104 fever. I'm freezing on the couch. Can't drive myself. And so he's playing golf. So I'm on the couch.
Oh
I'm
my
freezing.
God, what is wrong with you? I'm on the golf course. I have the most amazing game of golf, but you just text me all day long. What in the world is going on?
I have a fever of 104. I almost passed out. There's no way I could drive myself. I need you to take me to the hospital or urgent care or something.
My God. You couldn't call Uber?
Uber, really?
Yeah.
No, I can't call Uber. I thought maybe you would take 5 minutes out of your time and take me
I
to the
was on the
hospital.
golf course having an amazing round of golf. I do not have time to take you to the hospital. You know those white vans with the red lights on top? Those are called ambulances, and that's what those are for. Maybe I can call my buddies back and get back on the golf course and get me back in there.
Cut. That was cruel.
Yeah.
I'm sad.
And that is true.
It is true. Oh,
Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
so sorry.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. Well, we
Well,
like
thank
to.
you for getting in that headspace. I know I know you guys a little bit now.
Yeah.
Well, I
that
know
must
that
be
God has
hard.
brought y'all together for a purpose.
Absolutely.
And absolutely brought y'all into our lives for a purpose, because the next time I come across somebody who's struggling or suffering, I know where to send them.
Yeah,
Please do.
absolutely.
Our website is theve2w.com,
The
just
V2W.
v2w.com, and you can set up one-on-one calls with Melissa there. She is amazing. She really, really is.
I adore my
she has
clients.
hundreds of clients that she has changed lives for people. So if someone's struggling, they'll have a new friend with Melissa for sure.
So you both have an
Thank you.
opportunity. We like to close our shows with a voice of inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can look into that camera and just share with our audience just something from the depths of your heart that could help them today.
Life transformation is possible. Like we said, it's not your fault. You don't have to be ashamed of what happened, but you can find a place where you can recover and you can rebuild your life and you can find happiness again. We're living proof of it.
Right.
You just have to have faith in yourself and take the first step. That is the hardest step, but taking the first step and reaching out is what you need to do to move on to that
Amen.
next.
Melissa, that's a great word. John.
How do you follow that?
How do you follow
The most important thing, you're not alone. You are not alone. There are people that are out there like Melissa and I to help you no matter where you are on your journey of abuse. We can help you through that. So please reach out to us. We would love to be the person that guides you through this.
And we'll have
perfect.
all of their links
Yeah,
in the
absolutely.
show. And we could not do this without Mesmerized Media. So just a shout out to our producers who produce this podcast. And we're so grateful for you. We're growing by leaps and bounds thanks to you. So please continue to share the podcast.
Comment. We do answer. I say this every time. We answer directly. We don't have anyone answering your questions and your comments, or if you have any criticisms, nice ones, of course. And if you have any questions for either Melissa or John, I'll make sure to pass that along to them so that they can answer themselves.
So I'm Angela Williams,
And I'm Katie Sudano.
and you've been listening to Voice Up for the Voiceless, and we just thank you for tuning in.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks
for having
coming.
us.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank y'all for coming.